Welcome to Learn to Build a Business podcast, the show that brings you insights, stories, and strategies from those who've made the leap from working professionals to successful entrepreneurs. With your host, Rey Ortega.
Hey, welcome to the Learn to Build a Business podcast, where we tell you the tips, tricks, and tell you stories of how entrepreneurs have started their own business from an employee all the way to an entrepreneur. Some of them have successes, some of them have failures, but we're here to teach you all of the things that you need to know to become an entrepreneur. Today, I have a special guest, another special guest, someone that I met again 4 months ago, who I've established a really good relationship with. His name's Michael Council. He is the founder of EC Technology Consulting, and I have him here on the podcast to talk to you about how he did his business. Michael, welcome to the show today.
Hello, Ray. Hey, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to do this because back when I met you about 5 months ago, or was it 6 months ago? Back in October, when we went to this 10X event, which was a speaking event. I didn't befriend a lot of people there, not because I didn't want to, because everyone was kind of in their little clique. They were hanging out with their friends and people that they brought to the event. But you happen to be one of the ones that you and I kind of hit it off because of both of our backgrounds in technology. One of the things that we had talked about is just entrepreneurship in general. So when you're starting a business, every business has a different way of starting, different way of operating. One of the things that we teach at Learn to Build a Business is, we're trying to help people transition from working a company to try to become their own boss, try to build their own business. And the thing is, everybody has a different story. And that's why, Michael, you're here. I want people to know your story because you have a different path than I have and many other people that I've actually interviewed in a different podcast that we've had. So tell me a little bit about your journey to entrepreneurship and how do you got to your company, EC Technology Consulting?
Thank you. Well, my entrepreneurship journey has been long. It hasn't been straight at all. Start off with some basic things in the past, selling cell phones, doing Amway. But I became interested in starting and founding my own cybersecurity company because I actually came back to the U.S. from Dubai to work on a very big project. That project, we put all our eggs in that basket, packed up, left Dubai. The project didn't work out. So I looked at myself and I looked in the mirror and I said, it's time for you to go ahead and go off on your own. Hey, if, we can work on this project, and we can work for other people, we can go ahead and start to build wealth for ourselves. So I sat down, got an EIN number, started to work and register my business. And that was 4 years ago. One of the things I can say that I'm proud of, I've never been in the red.
That is awesome, dude. That is I've been in the red, so I definitely cannot relate. But that's a great accomplishment for you to do that, to never be in the red, because that is one of the biggest fears people have when they start a business is, are they going to be able to profit? Are they going to be able to make the money they can make in order to be able to support their families, support themselves, and so on? So tell me, how did you make that decision? Like, what was the mindset when you said, look, I'm going to go on my own? I know you mentioned a little bit about your story, but like, what is the mindset that kind of said, look, I could really do this? Because some people say they want to be an entrepreneur, and there's usually some catalyst that forces them to be an entrepreneur, or they go into it. But some people just like they dip their toe in the water. They don't necessarily go all out. What made you go all out?
There were a couple factors that made me go out. Number one in the mindset was, like I said, I've been kind of dipping my toe in the entrepreneurial waters for a long time already, but I never really put the right legal structures and did all the correct paperwork for me to really call it a business, for it to be considered a business. So before I did it, I did a lot of research. There were a lot of nights where I just talked with my wife and told her, hey, we have some additional income coming in on the side. Yeah, we may have to worry about, bills, but I had a plan because of my expertise to start as a consultant on my solopreneur journey. So as a consultant, what that allowed me to do was to go out there and sell myself. I recently talked to somebody I worked with in the past, and he said something that stuck with me. He said, Michael, I've talked to you for a long time, and you worked really hard to change from an air defender to a cybersecurity guy. But one thing I can say you're consistent with is you never undersell yourself. So as an entrepreneur, there's going to be a lot of lonely nights. When you're doing your research, you're going to come to some bumps in the road, but you have to believe in yourself. You have to sell yourself when you get out there.
So tell me, and that's a great story. So tell me that you said you're going to be long nights, lonely. Is that kind of your experience when you first started? Did you feel that, tell me a little bit about that story when you first started? Like, how did you feel in those first challenges that you had when you started your business?
Yeah, some of the first challenges, like you said, there are a lot of long, not so lonely nights. Like I said, my spouse was very supportive. So
Nice.
a lot of times during the day, I'm doing the consulting work and dealing with the clients that I have, and during the night, I'm doing the administrative work, uh, while also trying to carve out time to put in the systems that if something happens to me, there are processes and systems that are repeatable that can be done by somebody. Just one of the things when I was lonely and everything you can't talk to your spouse about, was just finding a group or finding people who are on the same journey that I'm on, because I'm not the first and only one to go through this journey.
Yeah.
Social media has helped a lot. Following a lot of entrepreneurs, and also investing back into myself and going to groups like the 10x speaking group that we went to when I met you the first time.
Yeah. So tell me about that. What kind of resources and stuff do you look at? I know you said, 10X is obviously the one that we met, right? Like you just mentioned, but like, what are some other resources that you've kind of gone and used in order for you to learn how to become an entrepreneur, or even through all those, challenges that you may have had? How did you get through that?
Some of the resources that I use, I am a stickler for using SBA. I'm always going to cheer for the Small Business Administration and their score division, because it's free. If you're an entrepreneur and you're not using those resources, you are hurting yourself. Not only do they offer webinars to teach you things that you can use at different stages of your business, but they're also providing free mentorship services. Say that again, they provide a free mentor. What does that mentor do for you? He takes you through the steps. And remember, we talked about being lonely at the start of our entrepreneurial journey. Well, that's just one friend that you can have, that, you can confide in and say, hey, listen, I'm having some issues putting together this process around, finances, or I'm having this issue putting this process in around my marketing. Better yet, I want to go on a trip, but I want to have a strategy session there. Can I call you so I can make sure that I'm doing the right thing? So they're available for all of those things. So the mentor, the first thing he started off with me, he said, hey, do you have a business plan? You can't go on a journey without a map. So as an entrepreneur, one of the first things you do, you do a business plan. You put that map out there and make sure you do not skip your market research, because that's very important, because that's letting you know who your competition is. It's letting you know who your customer is, and it's helping you adjust what your products are going to be. So that was one of the best things that happened to me, getting a mentor from SCORE.
Funny you say that, because I'm actually going through the process of being a mentor at SCORE. So I'm actually going through that process right now. So
Awesome.
The funny thing is learn to build a business. The reason why we started it was because it was kind of like an answer very similar to like SCORE. We were working with clients, small businesses that were more of like in the growth phase. And when we were out there talking to other businesses, they were like, look, we just can't afford all your services and consulting and everything at your current prices, because we're just a small little business just getting started. We can't afford the resources. So they said, could you guys do something where like maybe for, $40 a month or $20 a month or something, you could provide us something that we can learn from you guys, but yet maybe, it's like a program or something. So that's where Learn to Build a Business really came from. And when I talk to SCORE, they know we're in parallel. Like SCORE is the free version, we're the paid version, but the way I see everything is like, I have several coaches in my plethora of coaches. Some of them are more expensive than other ones. So it's just, everything's all supplemental. Like you may hear something from the SCORE coach or the SCORE mentor that may trigger something, but then you may be in our Learn to Build a Business program and hear something else, and then learn from that. So that's a good resource. SCORE is a good resource. If when you're starting out, they're free. Like Michael said, definitely take advantage of that, because they're free. They have connections, and they can hook you up with the right people. So definitely that's important. So let's talk a little bit about your business itself. How do you tailor your what you do? Like what clients do you serve, and what exactly do you do for them?
Yes. So my clientele, I service all sizes of business, all medium and large businesses. So when I initially came in, I was just gunning straight for federal contracts. That's a very long process, and it's very tedious, a lot of writing. And as a solopreneur, you have to bring on, different consulting services. So like I said, I've never been in the red, but as you get more and more involved in your business and more entrenched, you start to see, the money going out. So you have to make a decision. So one of those decisions I made for that, I said, maybe I'm shooting for, a target that's too small and the return is taking too long. So I started to use some of those skills that I had looking at the federal contracts to look at small and medium businesses that were serving the federal contract. So as I'm going to these businesses, I'm talking to them and I'm asking them, hey, can we develop partnerships? One of the questions that I'm asking them, I'm say, hey, what type of cybersecurity program do you have in place? Do you have cyber hygiene? And then also, taking them back saying, hey, you understand that as a federal or even at the state private level that you have to have, some type of cyber framework in place. So usually that's kind of intimidating. So what I do, I'll talk to them about assessments and talk to them about, making sure that we do awareness. So I believe in sweat equity. If we're building partnerships, I can go ahead and help you with some services like, help you implement, your cybersecurity awareness program. That's like one of the first things that you need to do. You need to make sure that not only you as the owner, but the people that you're entrusted with, not only your data from your business that you're building brick by brick and day by day, but your customer data, because that's very important, because once you lose your reputation, you can't get it back. So just kind of explaining that to them, and that is kind of what led me to that 10X speaker program. Because, going out looking for leads, I needed to understand, myself, how to talk, how to speak better, how to get actual, well, they call them stages, but, platforms so that I can get the message out. So we start off with simple things, such as social media and things like that. And we connect with our partners, but also getting on those stages so, that we can have, the ability to get on stage and build, your reputation so that your partners will be open to listen to you and use your services.
Yeah, absolutely. Cybersecurity is such a hot thing, man. I know like my company Grata, the shirt that I'm wearing that's my actual technology company that essentially funds Learn to Build a Business. Because it came out of that program or that company. We do cybersecurity assessments as well, right? And I could tell you that that's one of the biggest things that we run into is, especially with all these companies going offshore and then trying to bring back the technology. Like the offshore people are developing the technology, but then the people here onshore are doing the reviews and everything. And a lot of times we're finding a lot of cybersecurity vulnerabilities in that code base or in the infrastructure and all these kind of things. So it's a really big thing. And now the industry has moved a lot more towards moving things offshore. You're seeing a bunch of, the layoffs and stuff like that. And the reason why I bring that up, especially, and I threw in that layoffs at the end there, because again, that's what Learn to Build a Business is all about, right? How to become an entrepreneur, because right now they're laying off a lot of people who have very solid skills who can become entrepreneurs. I mean, look at you, your skills in cybersecurity. You're an entrepreneur. You started your own business, cybersecurity, or you started your own business as an entrepreneur because you had cybersecurity skills. Now tell me, when you first started, how did you go get your customers? Like, how did you start building your database of customers? How did you go through that process?
Yes, initially when I first started, I did what I was most comfortable with. I went as a consultant and did 1099 jobs. Why did I do that? Because as I did my initial strategy, I said my first 2 to 3 years, I'm going to build up, the largest pot of reserves money that I can build up. So later on, I can begin to spend more time and pull back and do some of the administrative tasks and bring on a lot of administrative personnel that are onshore or even offshore to help me with those tasks to get leads. Initially, I did just like everyone else. I went out there, but I only would accept 1099 jobs.
Okay.
Because what I was trying to do, I was trying to build the reputation of not just Michael Counsel, but of EC Technology Consulting Services.
Absolutely.
So, one of the things, you have to have past performance. You have to have relationships with organizations where you actually work. And when you get those references, they're not coming back for Rey Ortega or Michael Counsel. They're coming back for your organization. Absolutely. So, when you go out there, you're actually doing business development, right? Because you're going in there with that one contract. As I started to transition where I'm at right now, when I go and look for contracts, I go in and I say, well, I'm not just coming in there for me. I want to start and form a partnership, a team where if you're having difficulties filling out these jobs, I can take 2 or 3 of those jobs and bring in some of the people that I have, with these same skill sets, with clearances, and do GRC, that have been working in different sectors, from private, federal, military, into your organization. So, I'm using my network to keep those people available. I'll also, as I go out there, stages or platforms, be it digital or be it, in person, making sure that as I go out there, I'm collecting those leads, getting email addresses, and reaching out to those people. Also, I was very, very fortunate to have a good mentor, and he's opened up some of his network to me as well. So the next phase, probably the first phase most people use, is code contacts, picking up the phone.
Yeah, man. It's funny because as you're talking, all I kept thinking is you dropped like nugget after nugget on that. On that whole thing, you dropped nugget after nugget. Let me go back. I want to go back to the first thing that you had mentioned. So getting contracts. So for those who are listening and those who are watching, getting contracts, what Michael means is, as an individual, he went out to look for 1099 contracts. The thing is, when you get those contracts, you could put them under a business because they're 1099. But the thing is, people are looking to hire a contractor, not a business at first. What you're saying is you went out and you got contracts under your name, essentially, but you put them under the business to build the business reputation. Am I right on that?
That's correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm cool. I'm good on that. So that was the first nugget. The second nugget, you said, oh man, I lost it. But anyways, but the last one that you mentioned was mentorship. And you always go back to, finding a mentor or finding someone that, can guide you through the process. I think that's one of the things that people that start a business, I don't know if it's just pride or whatever, they have a hard time understanding that sometimes you just need to go get help. Somebody out there knows something you don't know and you just need the help. And it's good to go out there and get that help. Yes, you can buy programs. Yes, you can go go to a mentor at SCORE. However, at the end of the day, you sometimes need someone that will sit there and work with you hand in hand and mentor you through the process. Now, I know for a fact that, like when you do a mentorship at like a SCORE or something like that, they're not necessarily holding your hand through the process. They're guiding you and giving you advice. And then you kind of have to go out there on your own. But what you're talking about is you're talking about someone who's, not only giving advice, but also they're kind of like connecting you to the right people. They're trying to get, whatever it takes to get you into that next step of your business. Is that kind of what you were going with that when it comes to mentorships?
Absolutely. You hit it on the head. They say your network is your net worth. So constantly getting out there, having your face seen in the right places around the right people that have common goals in mind. For example, as a new entrepreneur, not spending your time around the water cooler talking about the fight from last week. If I'm around the water cooler, or, it's funny, everything's virtual now, right?
Yeah.
So in Slack, they have water cooler places. But if I'm in those locations, I'm talking to people, I'm meeting people, and I'm analyzing what what their mindset is. Are they entrepreneurs or are they employees? Because usually, I go in and I'm in there 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
And, I always keep my relationships open, because you just don't know. You may be able to help somebody out and be their mentor in the future, because you meet a lot of brilliant technology personnel that just may need that push to become an entrepreneur, or they may need to run across podcasts that teach them how to build a business.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great statement at the end there. I liked it. And it's, just to kind of go along with your story, the not to sound elitist, and I don't want people to think and hear Michael say, whether you're an employee, whether you're an entrepreneur, when you're going to network with people, it's not like we go to a networking event and says, oh, they're an employee, I don't want to talk to them. It's not that. It's the fact that what we're looking for is meaningful conversations that move the ball forward. And so when you go to a network event, and kind of the statement with the water cooler is the gossip hour, right? It's where people just go hang out and gossip or talk about stuff that has very little importance. However, when you go to a networking event, you want to network with other business people who are doing business things.
Absolutely.
Because their water cooler conversation is not a water cooler conversation. Their conversation is the deals that they're making, the connections that they're making, and you learn from those people. I can tell you an example. Last night, the person that I pay my lease to, who owns the whole floor, is a successful real estate entrepreneur with several buildings across the country. Last night, I was here till 11:30 p.m. and I'm hanging out with him, and our water cooler conversation was asset protection, how to make the next deal, how to buy another business, things like that. That's the difference between conversation between an employee and someone who's an entrepreneur. And that's kind of what, and I know that's a roundabout way of, I just wanted to say that for the listeners and the people that are watching, that that's what Michael's talking about. It's not being an elitist position of I'm an entrepreneur and you're just an employee. It's just the conversations are different. So that's why we seek out people that have those kind of conversations, the entrepreneurial conversations. And no disrespect to an employee, in fact, like you said, sometimes we like to mentor our employees and hope that one day they could be an entrepreneur, right? And so that kind of goes along with that. I hope I hit the nail on that one. I hope I was kind of paraphrasing everything you said in like one big statement.
Yeah, and definitely, I like the way you hit on, and you talked about not being elitist with the attitude. But I just think when we talk networking, you have to do some of these things with intent. You have to be intentional as an entrepreneur as you're building, your business. And the good thing about it, once again, if you go back, I said I'm on a 1099, so I'm an employee as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not only am I, an employee and the founder of my own organization, but when I'm there with a client, I'm an employee of the client, so I have to act accordingly.
Now, tell me, how like ever since you started the business, how long have you been in business? Just, I think you said 4 years or something like that. You started about 4 years ago. Tell me the progress or not progress, but tell me how the transition has been since the day you started and where you're at today.
Okay, since the day I started. So when I started, I will tell you, my focus was getting the business plan together, getting the structures in place, getting the legal structure in place, and finding something to put food on the table, right, and maintaining that. So I spent a lot of my hours focusing, on the client. After I'm done with the client, I would continue to work just to get ahead, to make sure, that those client, engagements were really good, trying to build up the reputation. As I moved into the second phase, I started holding strategy meetings. I ran across a podcast, and then I ran across a webinar talking about, hey, you have to strategize 5 years out. You should be looking, in the military, they have short term, near term, and far long term planning. So, since I was comfortable with that, I kind of put my process and shaped it around that. So as I went out, I made sure that, I don't have, an executive committee, but like I said, I have mentors and people that I trust that have been in other organizations. And I'm blessed to have like a great wife who acts as my CEO, because she's a great operations person. So we went out there, and in my second phase, we started to put those strategies together. As we put those strategies together, we said, you know what, we have to get out in front of people. So last year, during that phase of our operation, we said, we're going to get marketing. We're going to get marketing, and not just get marketing where we got a website, we put it out in front of people. Because, with websites, it's not always going to bring in people and leads, right? People go and visit websites all the time. How many people, actually leave a contact form? They want to talk to somebody. So I understood that I had to prepare myself to be able to talk to them. So hence the 10X class. And some of the bonuses that, as we talked to the people in those classes, they did other 10X classes where they talked about leads and getting leads. So, being able to put that together and put that back into my near-term planning, it's just getting more and more robust. Now, the last thing, and I think where I'm noticing my business is going to scale, is putting those processes in place. If I could do it again, all over again, I would have put those processes in place a lot earlier. So I would be able to, kind of multiply myself and move on to tasks that, as a CEO or a founder, you deem, hey, this task doesn't have as much importance as this other task, right? When it's tax season, you got to get the taxes done. You can't go back and say, hey, I'm going to deal with marketing, or I'm going to deal with putting another procurement packet together. Time is precious, and you have to focus on some task at hand. So, just going through all that and making sure as I move forward in the business. Understand there's different phases, and I'm building this plane as I go, but also I'm building systems as I go. So I'm looking forward to being able to scale and move into the next stage.
Yeah, and that's a great synopsis or history of the business, because for those that are listening again and those that are watching, when you're building a business, when you first start out, you're doing everything. You're kind of there's a book that I read years ago, and the guy's like, I can't remember what the name was, but the guy was like, yeah, you're out there plowing the road, and then you like turn around and realize all the stuff you messed up, and now you got to go clean it up. That's what you do when you first start. But then when you're established, you develop, like you said, a system. And now the system is like a pre-planned way you're going to plow the road. You're saying, okay, we're going to do it this way. And these are the people that are going to do this part. These are people going to do that part. But at the beginning, you really can't do that. At the beginning, you're just like, you're running and gunning, and you're like hoping you don't make a mistake that'll be disastrous. But if you do, it's like you stop, you turn around, you fix it, but then you keep plowing, right? You just keep moving forward. And I want people to understand that's, don't feel like when you first start, you have to build a system in place. The business plan is amazing. Like you said earlier, the business plan is amazing because the business plan is like you're developing the roadmap of where you're going to go. Building a system requires money, requires personnel and resources and all that stuff. And that's eventually where you're going to need to end up. If you definitely want to scale, you have to have a system in place. When you first start, you're just going 100 miles an hour and like you're doing every job, right? Like you did every job when you first started. You were everybody.
Absolutely.
Right?
At times I still have multiple hats that I put on.
Yep. 10 years. I've been 10 years in the game. I'm doing multiple hats still. Like it doesn't end. Like, especially when you have like employees and one person leaves and now you got to take over that because you don't have a backup for that person. So that kind of stuff happens. So what kind of advice would you give any one of the entrepreneurs out there who are looking to get into not necessarily your business, but just in business in general, but even if they are trying to get into a business similar to yours, a service business, supplying, services to a government or something like that?
Well, first thing I'd say, if you get the opportunity to, we used to call it a right seat ride or, OJT, observe somebody who's doing that. If you get the opportunity to find someone who's doing what you want to do and you're able to embed yourself in those situations, do it. Because you get to look at them, you get to learn from their mistakes, and you get to have those intentional conversations, hey, so how are you doing this? What would you do in this situation? You get to ask these questions like, hey, what was your first mistake? What did you do when you made your first mistake? And I like the way you mentioned that in the previously, because what I do when, I do something, I make a mistake, there has to be an action, after action review or lessons learned, right? Because you don't want to make that mistake twice. You want to capture that information and you want to get it put down in some type of, document and get that saved. Not only that, when you're, like you said, if you lose an employee and you have to go in there and do the work that employee is doing, well, that employee's been doing it every day for so many days, right? He needs to have processes down. If he does something more than 3 times, and it leads into an output, guess what? That is most likely a process that needs to be captured. And it needs to be captured and needs to be nurtured and built to be stronger in your organization. So, hey, take somebody else's. So long story short, use somebody else's errors, learn from someone else, and then understand what's a repetitive task that needs to be caught as a process. So you'll start to build from there.
Oh, I love that. Me being a software developer that builds automated systems, like I love that comment right there. Find the thing that's the most mundane, repetitive task and automate that thing, man. I'm all for that, man. And so now I want to get back to the business side on the part of when you're what would you say, and this is and I know this wasn't part of the questions, but I just thought I'd ask this question. What would you say is I want you to tell me what is your biggest failure, and I want you to tell me what's your biggest success in the last 4 years.
So my biggest failure was at the beginning, there were times I wasn't consistent enough. I wasn't giving enough time to my business on a daily basis. And I reached back out to, once again, one of my mentors, and he said, you know what? I can hear it. You're tired. He said, and your business journey is different than most people's business journey. You have a 1099, you have a job that pays pretty good. So when you're tired, you don't see the dip in maybe you see the dip in productivity for the business, but the client is still getting what they need. Your revenue is not changing. So of course, as a business person, a businessman, you have metrics or measurables. So I'm looking at that metric of my actual revenue, and I'm like, that's not changing. But he said, you know what you have to do? You have to stay consistent, and you have to devote at least 2 to 3 hours a day to your business. He said, you must work your business. He said, because as a 1099, if you fall into what you're falling into, you're just building up someone else's wealth. You have a very good plan. You have a viable business. To build that business, take the time to do it. Be consistent. And my biggest success, most businesses close in the first 2 to 3 years. I think my biggest success is, going this 4th year and seeing all these things that are starting to come into fruition, and being able to say, you know what, I'm going to take some time. I want to speak. I want to write. I want to share. I want to give back to the community. I want to teach the next generation. I want to work with women entrepreneurs. If you're working for someone else, you're not building and educating and putting back into yourself and your business, you can't do those things. So my biggest success is, that I was consistent, and now, everything is starting to open up. I can see, where the scaling is going to begin. And I'll just say, just being here today, being around with EC Technology Consulting Services still around is my biggest success.
That is awesome. And I do applaud you for that, because I know that feeling. Yes. Was it 95% of businesses fail within the first 3 years, I think it is. And then I think it goes up to all the way 99% when you get to 10 years. So the percentages keep going higher the more years you're in it. So that is a huge testament to your gumption of being an entrepreneur and building your own business. That's actually really cool. So good for you, man. That is awesome. Do you have something that our viewers can take advantage of when inside of your business at this moment?
Yes, right now, at this moment, everyone can take advantage of the free cybersecurity tips I give them. I started every week. I'll be on social media, all the platforms, just giving out free basic cybersecurity tips, right? Because we want to make sure cybersecurity is front of mind with you and your organization. We want to make sure not only that you're protecting your organization, but you're protecting yourself as well. Because if you protect yourself, protect your own, individual devices, let's be honest, we know that most people are using the same personal device as the mobile phone for their business. They don't have, VPNs. They don't have the mobile protection things on it, but that's too far, right? So let's just give them the basics. And then also, you can visit us at our website, www.eccybersecurity.com. And on that website, we have some of the services that we do. We're getting ready to launch a new website. One of the things I want to say for small businesses, what I'd like to do, I'd like to help you out with your actual cybersecurity awareness. Let's just start basic. Let's just make sure that you, as a business owner, are aware of some of the threats and vulnerabilities that are out there, and some of the things and controls that you can put in place to secure your organization and your personal stuff. Then not only that, let's go ahead and take it to the next step and do an assessment. So we have some free things for people out there. We'll give them, some documentation, help them out with acceptable use documentation to get them, on the road, and also, the cybersecurity awareness. But that's not all the documentation. I can't give you all the secrets. So just go on there. On my social media, I always put my Calendly link in there and make a call. Let's do a 30-minute consulting call so we can talk about, and we can tailor something for you in your business. Because I think it's really, really important to tailor the services to the client that you're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. Great information. By the way, just so that everyone can understand where my point of view is and listening to what Michael's saying, is cybersecurity tends to be a secondary thought process. Most entrepreneurs go into business and they'll buy a Wix account or a WordPress site or whatever. And they think that security is embedded in what they're buying. The reality is there's several areas of security. One of them is physical security. So you have your software, which is your software security. You have your infrastructure, which is what your software lives on, right? So let's say you have a WordPress site. It's just a basic marketing site. It's got to live somewhere. So that's the infrastructure it lives on. There's security there. Then you personally have to have some type of physical security for yourself. That's what Michael mentioned. He mentioned the word VPN, which is a virtual private network. And when you're sitting at a Chick-fil-A or a Panera and you're working on your business, all the traffic that's going to their Wi-Fi can be spoofed or could be sniffed out and can be grabbed, information that could be pertinent to your business. So that's what Michael's talking about. When he's talking about getting a cybersecurity plan in place when you start a business, that's what he's talking about. It's being able to know all of the areas that you need to be aware of when it comes to cybersecurity. My team does not work outside of the office without VPN. Like they have to log into a VPN for them to do any type of work because we need to have all of that data encrypted and protected in case someone's sniffing what's called packets on the Wi-Fi, right? Things like that. So definitely take advantage of it. Michael's here for a reason. A good guy, has a great business plan, business idea, and he's servicing and helping a lot of companies out there. So take advantage of that. It's a great thing. Cybersecurity is super important. We preach about it all the time to businesses. By the way, like I said, my Grata company, we service businesses that are already established that are trying to scale. We run into cybersecurity things all the time because business owners have failed to take cybersecurity seriously at the onset when they first started their business. Michael, what do you say to that?
Well, definitely, I agree. Like I said, when you first start your business, it's an afterthought. I mean, you really don't think about it, but if you really look at what's going on in our environment today, ransomware attacks are shooting through the roof. Fulton County, they got it again, right? So we have a active ransomware attack in Fulton County. So we had one in the city of Atlanta previously, a few years back. And think about it, they're taking away services. So that's at the city level, state. So think about all the resources they have. If you're a small business, a solopreneur, or 1 to 10 people, and they take your data, remember, they're not just taking your data, they're taking the data of your clients as well. And then if you happen to be a third party and you're working for a larger organization that has a responsibility to lock down, that information, it just kind of gets bigger and bigger. So sometimes when you're working with the larger organizations, because remember, I said we want to shoot for the larger target, right? We just don't want to shoot for just regular small businesses. There's things that, as entrepreneurs, that you can do for those Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 companies right away. Because remember, you started a business because there's a problem and you can solve that problem. But don't have a cybersecurity problem in your organization. Take the time to start to build a cybersecurity program. Put in basic cyber hygiene at the beginning of your journey. And then we can have strategy meetings. We can work together and make sure as you move and you grow that your cybersecurity program is growing with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All great information, Michael. I really appreciate we're coming to the end of this podcast. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to just any type of mentorship ideas for someone starting a business out there? Like, what would you want to share with the people watching or listening to this podcast?
Absolutely. So don't be afraid. Do it. Make a plan. Make sure that you make a plan. Not only that business plan, but a lot of us have families and, we have other significant people in our life. Make sure that you involve them in your life because they're going on this journey with you as well. Make sure they understand what you're doing because you're going to need that support. Because when you're spending 8 to 10 hours a day doing your regular W-2 job. Because remember, I mentioned 1099s, but you can do a W-2 job and augment your income until your business makes enough to replace your income. And then what I'd like to say, one of the things that I've moved into is, like you said, that conversation, business acquisitions. I understand at my age, I'm not going to grow this cybersecurity company out as big as I want to in the time that I have left. But if I find businesses that can augment some of the services that we have that are for sale, I'm very open to business acquisitions. So don't be afraid to look and learn how to acquire businesses as well. You don't have to start from scratch, but if you do, make sure you have a mentor and you're working through the SCORE system and working finding good podcasts like this, and reaching out to people that have 10, 5, 12 years of entrepreneurship so they can help you along your journey.
Absolutely. Well said, man. Michael, thank you for being on the podcast. For those listening, definitely check out, when we're going to put all of Michael's information in the description so that you could be able to access his website or any information that he just mentioned earlier. Definitely check those out. Also, just want to say, make sure you go check out learntobuildabusiness.com as well. And if you are not on our newsletter, definitely sign up for our newsletter, where we're going to be sharing tips, tricks, and all these types of stories. On top of that, more podcasts that are coming out in the future. Like and subscribe if you see this on YouTube. Definitely. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it. Great having you on. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. One last thing I'd like to say, hey, thank you very much. And if you come along, EC Knowledge Consulting Services would love your business. And we're very confident in what we do. So we always say it with our chest. We are here to help you.
Awesome. Great soundbite at the end. All right, everyone. Catch you at the next podcast. Thanks, Mike. See you guys later.